The only sounds in the sudden, ringing silence were my daughter's choked gasp and the sharp, metallic crack of my mother's wedding ring against my cheekbone. My vision exploded in a burst of white-hot stars. Time seemed to slow down. I could feel the warm, thick liquid before I saw it. A single drop of my own blood hit the beige rug, the one I'd saved for 3 months to buy, and blossomed. A dark crimson stain. Ungrateful. My mother. Maria. Spat. Her face was contorted. Her lipstick, a garish red slash. You think you're better than us now. The handprint was already burning across my skin. But it was my father's grip that held me immobile. His thick fingers dug into my bicep, pinning me against the wall. He was a large man, and he used his weight to keep me steady for her. Behind them, in the doorway to the hall, my 7-year-old daughter, Maya, stood frozen. Her small hands were clenched at her sides, her favorite teddy bear dangling forgotten from one hand. Her eyes were wide and vacant with shock. She was witnessing the one thing I had spent her entire life protecting her from, the truth of who my family really was. "Mommy," she cried, her voice shattering. She took a step forward, but my mother instantly blocked her path. A lioness protecting the wrong cub. "Stay out of this." "Maya," Maria snapped, not even looking at her. "Maybe if your mother learned some respect, like your Uncle Mark, she wouldn't need to be punished." "My name is Elena. I'm 34 years old, a single mother, and a data analyst. This is the story of how I finally built a firewall around my life, after the people who gave me life tried to burn it to the ground." I could feel the blood trickling from a small cut just above my eye, where her ring had connected. My legs felt weak. The text message that had ignited this firestorm was still glowing on my phone, abandoned on the coffee table. "Mark is in trouble. He owes $5,000 for his car by Monday. Be a good sister and help him. We raised you better." I had ignored it. That was my crime. 2 hours later, they were at my door. No warning. My mother hadn't knocked. She'd hammered on the door with the flat of her hand. Like a debt collector, my father, Robert, had stood behind her, his arms crossed. That familiar, disappointed sigh already on his lips. "Why aren't you answering your phone?" Maria had demanded the second I opened the door, pushing past me into my apartment. "I told you last week." "Mom, I can't," I'd replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I had just paid the final installment for Maya's orthodontic work, a procedure that had completely emptied my emergency fund. My 2 8-year-old brothers' inability to manage his finances was not my emergency. "Oh, so your daughter's teeth are more important than your brother's safety," my father had said, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he settled onto my sofa without being invited. "I'm not responsible for Mark's lifestyle," I'd said, standing my ground. It was a new, fragile thing for me. This spine I was growing. He has options. He just doesn't like them. Don't put his choices on me. That's when my father had hesitated. He looked uncomfortable, shifting on the couch. "Maria, listen," he'd started, looking at his hands. Maybe the girl's right. Mark needs to learn to stand on his own 2 feet. This is Robert." My mother's voice was a shriek. "Are you siding with her after everything we've done for him? She owes us this. She owes him." My father's face had hardened. The brief flicker of reason was gone, extinguished by her rage. He stood up, his allegiance shifting back to its default setting. "Don't talk to your mother like that," he'd growled. That's when Maria had thrown her purse. It hit the wall, scattering receipts. "You selfish, ungrateful brat," she screamed. And then the slap, hard, sharp, and deliberate. I stumbled back, stunned, before I could even react. My father grabbed my arm. "You stand still and listen to your mother when she's talking to you," he'd ordered, shoving me against the wall. "And now, They were sitting on my couch. My mother breathing heavily. My father staring at me with cold disapproval, as if I were the one who had just committed a crime. The blood drying on my face didn't matter. My daughter, now silently crying in the hallway, didn't matter. We will leave when you transfer the money to Mark's account, my father stated, as if discussing the weather. Until then, we'll stay right here to make sure you do it. I looked at Maya. I looked at her small, trembling body and her tear-streaked face, which was pale with a terror no child should ever feel. Something inside me, something that had bent and twisted and accommodated their toxicity for 34 years, did not just break, it calcified. It turned to steel. Get out, I whispered. My mother actually laughed. A short, ugly bark. Or what? Elena, you'll call the police on your own parents. Don't be pathetic. Even you aren't that low. I didn't answer. I didn't look at them again. I walked calmly to Maya, took her small, cold hand, and led her past them, toward my bedroom. I pulled her inside and locked the door. The click of the deadbolt felt like the loudest sound I had ever made. Maya didn't cry again. She lay beside me on the bed, her small body rigid, still clutching her bear. We listened as my parents moved around my living room. We heard them open the refrigerator. We heard them turn on my television. They were camping out, waiting for me to surrender. Hours passed. The anger in my veins slowly cooled, replaced by a chilling clarity. Mommy Maya's voice was a tiny whisper in the darkness. Why does Grandma hate you? I pulled her closer, my throat closing. She doesn't hate me. Sweetie, she's sick, in a way that makes her mean. It was a weak answer, but it was all I had. I didn't have the words to explain the decades of emotional manipulation, the constant favoring of my brother Mark, the endless demands for money that had escalated to this. But as I stared at the ceiling, listening to my father's snores rattling through the locked door, the pieces of a plan I hadn't even known I was building began to click into place. For years, I had been saving, every bonus from my analytics job, every late night doing freelance coding. I wasn't just saving, I was investing. And 2 years ago, one of those investments, made through an LLC to keep my name hidden, was the purchase of a small, 4-unit apartment building in my old neighborhood, a building where my parents were currently tenants in Unit 2B. They had no idea their ungrateful daughter was their landlord. They just knew the rent was cheap, and the management company was slow to fix things. The first gray light of dawn filtered through the blinds. I heard my parents arguing in the kitchen. I dressed Maya quietly, zipping her jacket. I put on my sunglasses, a futile attempt to hide the swelling cut and the darkening bruise on my cheek. We're going to be okay, I told her, my voice low and firm. She nodded, her face solemn, her trust in me absolute. It was a trust that made my heart ache and my resolve harden into tempered steel. We slipped out the back door, the one that led to the alley. I drove Maya to school, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly, my knuckles were white. I watched her walk inside, her small backpack a heavy burden. Then, instead of driving to my office, I drove to the nearest urgent care clinic. I was assaulted. I told the triage nurse, my voice devoid of emotion, by my parents. I need a medical report. The doctor was kind. He documented the cut on my forehead from Maria's ring. He photographed the angry, finger-shaped bruises on my bicep from Robert's grip. He gave me a tetanus shot and a pamphlet on domestic violence. I left with the most important thing, a physical, undeniable record. My next stop was the county courthouse. This was the hardest part. I sat in my car for 10 minutes. The medical report on the passenger seat. This was the line. Crossing it meant no return. My hand trembled as I reached for the door handle. A wave of suffocating guilt washed over me. They are your parents. You're destroying the family. I felt like a traitor. I almost started the car and drove away. Then, I saw Maya's face in my mind, her eyes wide with terror. Watching me be attacked, the guilt vanished, replaced by a cold, protective rage. I got out of the car. I told the clerk my story. I showed him the pictures on my phone. I showed him the medical report. I filled out the forms, my handwriting shaky as I wrote Robert and Maria. By noon, an emergency protective order was in place. They were legally barred from coming within 100 yards of me, or Maya. But the judge had been clear. This order prevents contact. Ms. Sanchez, he said gently, it does not. However, evict them from their home, even if you own it. That is a separate civil matter. I walked back to my car, feeling defeated. The order felt like a flimsy piece of paper. What good was it if I couldn't get them out? They were still my tenants. Evicting them for non-payment would take months. And they were, infuriatingly, paid up through the end of the month. I sat in the parking garage, my head pounding. The plan was falling apart. I called my lawyer, the one who had handled the LLC formation. They can't get away with this, I said, my voice cracking with desperation. Elena, calm down, he said. An eviction for assault in a different location is difficult. We need a direct breach of their lease. What does it say? I pulled up the file on my phone, my fingers swiping frantically. I don't know. Standard stuff. Look at Section 12. He instructed. The Conduct of Tenant Clause. I scrolled down. Section 12. Tenant. Guests and invitees shall not engage in any unlawful activity, including but not limited to acts of violence, harassment, or behavior that threatens the health and safety of others or constitutes a public nuisance. Oh my God, I whispered. Exactly. My lawyer said. The assault didn't happen on their property, but the assailants live there, and you have a police report and a protective order to prove they are a threat. He paused. Send me the protective order and the medical report. I'll draft a 3-day cure or quit notice. The cure is for them to cease all illegal and threatening behavior. The protective order proves they've already failed. We've got them. The protective order was served by a sheriff's deputy that evening, along with the 3-day cure or quit notice. My parents were no longer in my apartment. They must have left after realizing Maya and I weren't coming back. It took less than 10 minutes for the screaming phone call to come. It was from a new, unknown number. You witch! Maria shrieked, her voice distorted with rage. A restraining order against your own mother. And what is this eviction nonsense? You can't evict us. We paid our rent. The restraining order is because you assaulted me in front of my child, I said, my voice cold and flat. I was sitting in my car, parked in my new, empty driveway. The eviction notice is because that assault is a direct violation of your lease. You have 3 days to cure the breach, which means ceasing all violent and illegal behavior, since the protective order legally proves you are a threat. You've already failed. You have 30 days to vacate the property. There was a stunned silence. Then my father's voice, pleading, Elena, baby, listen, your mother. She was just upset. You know how she gets. Don't do this. Don't throw us out. This is your family. You held my arm. Dad, I said, cutting him off. You held me so she could hit me. You are not family. You are tenants who have breached their contract. I hung up the phone and blocked the number. A week later, I ran into my brother, Mark, at a coffee shop. He was exactly as I remembered expensive sneakers. A smirk, and the scent of entitlement. So, he scoffed, stirring his latte. Heard you've gone crazy. Calling the cops on Mom and Dad. That's low. Elena, even for you. Was it low? Mark, I asked. not moving. Or was it just the bill finally coming due? You should know all about those. His smirk faltered. What's that supposed to mean? It means the bank you've been borrowing from is no longer giving out loans. The stage you've been dancing on, the one Mom and Dad held up for you, it's about to crumble. I'd find a new safety net if I were you. I walked out, leaving him looking confused and, for the first time, a little scared. The next few weeks were chaos. My parents, as expected, tried to rally the family. My aunt called, telling me I was ungrateful and mentally unstable. I stayed quiet. I forwarded her a copy of the police report and the judge's protective order. She didn't call back. While they were busy trying to ruin my reputation, I was busy moving. I used the last of my savings, combined with the income from the other units in their building, and closed on a small, 2-bedroom house on the other side of town. It had a fenced-in yard and a big oak tree. It was modest, but it was ours. It was safe. The 30th day arrived. The eviction day. The sheriff was scheduled for noon. I felt a sick, anxious pull to be there. I needed to see it end. Maya, surprisingly, asked to come. I want to see the new house. Mommy, she'd said. But I knew she needed to see this. 2. We parked across the street. The front lawn of Unit 2B was a disaster of piled-up trash bags and broken furniture. My father, Robert, was sitting on the curb, his head in his hands. He looked small, defeated. My mother, Maria, was the one raging, screaming at the 2 sheriff's deputies who stood impassively by the door. A sharp, agonizing pang of guilt shot through me. They looked pathetic. This was my father, sitting in the gutter. I had done this. My hand went to my mouth, and for one wild second, I wanted to run across the street and tell them to stop, that I'd take it all back. Then, Maya's small hand slipped into mine. She squeezed. Hard. I looked down at her. She wasn't scared. She was just watching. Her expression serious and steady. Her strength grounded me. The guilt evaporated, replaced by the cold. A hard certainty of a mother protecting her child. We got out of the car and walked across the street. The moment Maria saw me, her rage found a new target. You, she shrieked. Lunging forward, a deputy put his hand on her shoulder, stopping her. You did this. You demon throwing your own parents out on the street. I hope you rot. You threw yourselves out, I said, my voice carrying in the quiet street. You did it the moment you put your hands on me. You did it when you terrorized my daughter. My father looked up, his eyes bloodshot. Elena, please, we have nowhere to go. Mark, he's not answering his phone. That's not my problem anymore. Dad, I said, you made your choice when you held my arm. Maya stepped slightly forward, her chin high. You shouldn't have hurt my mom, she said, her voice small but clear as a bell. You lied. You said you loved us. My mother's face crumpled, but not in apology, in fury. You'll regret this, she hissed. No, I said, taking Maya's hand again. I regretted letting it go on for 34 years. This is just paperwork. I nodded to the deputy. He tipped his hat. Ma'am. We turned and walked away. We didn't look back. Later that evening, we sat on the floor of our new, empty living room, eating pizza out of the box. The house was quiet. Do you feel better? Mommy, Maya asked, nibbling on her crust. I thought for a moment, the setting sun streaming through our new windows. I feel clean, I said, like I finally washed off something really dirty. She nodded, as if that made perfect sense. I started therapy the next week. Maya started art classes. We were rebuilding. A few weeks later, I got a text from a cousin. Sarah, She said Mark had completely ghosted our parents, leaving them with his debts. Robert and Maria were now renting a tiny, one-bedroom apartment above a defunct laundromat, a place known for code violations. They had burned every bridge. I read the message, and then I deleted it. I posted a picture to my private social media. It was of Maya, holding up a new painting. It was a picture of our small house, with 2 stick figures in the yard, and a bright, smiling sun. The caption was simple: "Finally home." It's a terrifying thing to cut ties with the people who are supposed to be your foundation. But I learned that sometimes the only way to build a safe home for your children is to first tear down the toxic house you were raised in. You have to become your own foundation. Thank you so much for listening to our story. If you've ever had to make an impossible choice to protect yourself or your family, please share your strength in the comments below. It's important for people to know they aren't alone. And if this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing. You are stronger than you know.